Most people believe a stroke happens without warning and without giving anyone time to react. That belief is exactly why certain nighttime changes are often ignored, because when a symptom seems small, it rarely feels important. Yet some older adults report unusual sleep changes before serious health events. Not dramatic symptoms that demand immediate medical attention, but subtle disturbances that appear ordinary at first glance. And that raises a question most people never think to ask. Imagine going to bed believing everything is completely normal, then waking up unaware that your body may have been sending quiet signals that never looked like a medical emergency, signals easily blamed on aging, stress, or poor sleep. A strange awakening during the middle of the night, a feeling that sleep no longer restores you the way it once did, or an unusual alertness when your body should be resting. What makes this even more concerning is how familiar these experiences seem. Many people have dismissed them without a second thought. That is precisely what makes them so easy to overlook. The brain rarely announces problems in obvious ways at first. Instead, it may communicate through patterns that seem disconnected, patterns that only become meaningful when viewed together, which leads to an even bigger mystery about what may really be happening. Perhaps this story feels more familiar than you expected. Maybe you wake up once or twice during the night without knowing why. Maybe your eyes suddenly open and you find yourself fully alert. Perhaps you look at the clock and notice the same unusual times appearing repeatedly. You try to fall back asleep, but your mind feels strangely awake. The next morning, you tell yourself it was probably nothing, and then the pattern quietly repeats itself again. You may have also noticed yourself changing positions more than before, not because you are fully awake, but because something feels slightly uncomfortable without an obvious reason. You turn to one side and then to the other. For a moment, things feel better. Then the restlessness slowly returns, so you adjust again without thinking much about it. Many people consider this a completely normal part of aging. Then there are the mornings that seem harder to explain. You slept for several hours, yet still feel mentally sluggish. Your body got rest, but your mind feels slower than usual. Simple tasks require more focus than they once did. Names and details take longer to come to mind. You eventually feel better as the day progresses, but something about the night before does not feel right, and you can't quite put your finger on why. Some people notice periods of unusual alertness after waking. Others experience a vague sense that their sleep has changed, not dramatically enough to create alarm, but enough to make them wonder if something is different. The strange part is that these experiences often appear together, yet most people view them as separate and unrelated events, as if each symptom exists in its own category. That assumption may be hiding something important, because when a pattern becomes familiar, the brain stops questioning it. What once seemed unusual gradually starts feeling normal. A nighttime awakening becomes routine. A restless night becomes expected. Morning fog becomes part of everyday life, and repeated sleep disruptions lose their sense of significance. The more common they become, the less attention they receive, which is exactly why certain patterns can remain unnoticed for so long. The real question is not whether these experiences happen. Millions of older adults experience them every single night. The question is whether they are truly unrelated. What if waking unexpectedly, changing positions, and feeling foggy later share a common thread? What if they are not random sleep annoyances at all? What if they are different expressions of the same underlying process? And if that possibility is true, the next question becomes impossible to ignore. When these experiences are viewed one at a time, they rarely seem alarming. A sudden awakening may feel like nothing more than a random interruption. A restless night may be blamed on stress or daily worries. A feeling of discomfort may seem too minor to deserve attention, and waking up tired can easily be explained away. That is why most people never see the larger picture forming. The signs appear separately even when they may not be separate, and that makes the pattern extremely difficult to recognize. One person notices frequent awakenings throughout the night. Another notices an unusual sense of alertness at 2 or 3 in the morning. Someone else finds themselves changing positions over and over again. Others describe vivid nighttime sensations they can't fully explain. Some wake feeling mentally sluggish despite spending enough time in bed. Others feel as though their sleep has become lighter and less restorative. Each experience seems different on the surface, yet many of them tend to appear within the same period of life.
What makes this especially interesting is how often these signs overlap. A person who wakes unexpectedly may also experience morning brain fog. Someone who feels restless at night may also notice unusual alertness. Frequent repositioning may appear alongside fragmented sleep. Vivid nighttime sensations may occur together with unexplained awakenings. The experiences do not always arrive in the same order. They do not affect every person in exactly the same way, but the similarities are difficult to ignore once they are noticed. Most people never connect these experiences because they occur gradually. There is rarely a single moment that demands immediate attention. Instead, the changes accumulate quietly over weeks or months. One symptom appears and then another follows later. The brain treats them as separate events. Life continues and the pattern remains hidden. That hidden nature is precisely what makes it so easy to miss, and why so many people never realize a pattern exists at all. The human mind naturally searches for simple explanations. Poor sleep becomes the answer for waking during the night. Stress becomes the answer for mental fog. Age becomes the answer for reduced sleep quality. Discomfort becomes the answer for constant repositioning. Each explanation sounds reasonable when viewed alone, but reasonable explanations do not always reveal the entire story. Sometimes they hide a deeper question that remains unanswered. The real mystery is not whether these signs occur. The real mystery is why they so often seem to travel together. Why do disruptions, alertness, restlessness, discomfort, and mental sluggishness appear within the same pattern? Why do so many older adults describe remarkably similar experiences? And why do these changes become more noticeable for some people over time? Most people assume they already know the answer. But what if the explanation everyone accepts is only part of the picture? And what if aging alone cannot fully explain what is happening? For years, many people have been told the same explanation. You are getting older, so naturally your sleep will change. You may wake up more often during the night. You may sleep more lightly than you did decades ago. You may feel less refreshed in the morning. And because this explanation sounds reasonable, most people accept it without question. The problem is that a reasonable explanation is not always a complete explanation. To be clear, aging does affect sleep. The body changes over time, and so does the brain. Sleep cycles can become different as the years pass. Certain nighttime disruptions become more common with age. No serious researcher would deny that reality. But acknowledging one factor does not eliminate the possibility of others. And this is where the conversation becomes much more interesting, because something important is often overlooked. Many adults assume that every nighttime disturbance belongs in the same category. They assume waking up is normal simply because they are older. They assume restlessness is normal for the same reason. They assume unusual alertness is normal as well. Over time, these assumptions become automatic. Very few people stop to ask whether all of these experiences share the same cause, and even fewer ask whether the body might be responding to something specific. That question alone changes how the entire situation is viewed. What if some nighttime symptoms are not random disturbances at all? What if they are actually responses rather than problems? The difference may sound small at first, but it completely changes the meaning behind what people experience. A random disturbance has no purpose. A response exists because something triggered it. And when a response appears repeatedly, it often suggests an underlying pattern. That possibility deserves far more attention than it usually receives. Think about how the body operates throughout the day. It constantly sends signals designed to protect and guide you. Pain can be a signal. Fatigue can be a signal. Thirst can be a signal. Even discomfort can be a signal. The body rarely creates responses without a reason, which raises an intriguing possibility about certain nighttime experiences. Perhaps they are communicating something rather than merely interrupting sleep. If that idea is true, then the entire discussion changes. The focus shifts away from blaming age alone. Instead, attention turns toward understanding what may be happening beneath the surface. Why do certain symptoms appear together so consistently? Why do they repeat night after night for some individuals? And why do these changes become more noticeable for some people over time? Most people assume they already know the answer. But what if the explanation everyone accepts is only part of the picture? And what if aging alone cannot fully explain what is happening?
At first glance, these nighttime experiences appear completely unrelated. A sudden awakening seems different from restlessness. Morning brain fog seems different from unusual nighttime alertness. Frequent repositioning appears to belong in its own category. Vivid sensations during sleep seem unrelated as well. That is exactly why most people never connect them. The symptoms look separate even when they may be connected beneath the surface, and that possibility changes everything. Imagine seeing pieces of a puzzle scattered across a table. Each piece appears meaningless when viewed alone. One piece shows a small shape, another reveals a different color. A third seems to belong to an entirely different image. Only when enough pieces are placed together does the hidden picture emerge. The same principle may apply to certain nighttime experiences. What appears random individually may reveal a pattern collectively. This is where many people become surprised. The body often expresses a single problem through multiple signals, not because the signals are identical, but because different systems respond in different ways. One person may experience repeated awakenings. Another may notice unusual alertness during the night. Someone else may experience fragmented sleep and morning sluggishness. Yet the source influencing those experiences may be remarkably similar. The brain and body operate as an interconnected network. During healthy sleep, countless processes work together in coordination. Timing matters. Communication matters. Recovery depends on precise biological rhythms. When those rhythms function smoothly, restorative sleep becomes easier. When coordination becomes disrupted, the effects may appear in unexpected ways. And those effects often show up long before anyone understands their significance. What makes this especially difficult to recognize is its subtle nature. It does not announce itself with a single dramatic symptom. Instead, it influences multiple experiences at the same time. Sleep may feel lighter. Awakenings may become more common. Mental clarity may feel reduced the next morning. Comfort during the night may become harder to maintain. Each change appears small until the pattern is viewed as a whole. This leads to a fascinating possibility. Perhaps these experiences are not separate sleep problems at all. Perhaps they are different expressions of the same nighttime imbalance, an imbalance that affects how the brain and body coordinate restoration while we sleep, an imbalance that may influence alertness, comfort, positioning, and sleep continuity. If that idea sounds unfamiliar, there's a reason for it, because understanding this possibility requires exploring a little-known nighttime phenomenon that most people have never heard about. To better understand this hidden connection, we need a simple way to describe it. Think of it as a state called night mismatch. Night mismatch occurs when the brain receives conflicting biological messages during sleep. Part of the brain is trying to enter deep restoration. Another part continues behaving as if it needs to remain alert. The result is not complete wakefulness and not complete restoration. Instead, the brain becomes caught somewhere in between. A useful analogy is a computer attempting to enter sleep mode. The system is ready to power down unnecessary activity. Everything appears prepared for recovery and maintenance,
but several background programs continue demanding attention. The computer never fully settles into the state it was designed to enter. From the outside, it may appear to be resting normally, yet important processes remain incomplete beneath the surface. Something similar may happen during certain nights. When the brain receives mixed signals, sleep can become less efficient. Not necessarily shorter, not necessarily more obvious, but less restorative than it should be. The person may spend enough hours in bed. They may even believe they slept through most of the night, yet they wake up feeling as though something was missing, as if recovery never fully reached its destination. This may help explain why some nighttime experiences seem connected. Unexpected awakenings can emerge from this unstable state. Periods of unusual alertness can emerge as well. The same may be true for fragmented sleep patterns. The brain repeatedly shifts between restoration and vigilance. Neither process fully takes control. As a result, sleep becomes more vulnerable to interruption, and the individual rarely understands why it keeps happening. What makes night mismatch difficult to recognize is its subtle nature. It does not announce itself with a single dramatic symptom. Instead, it influences multiple experiences at the same time. Sleep may feel lighter. Awakenings may become more common. Mental clarity may feel reduced the next morning. Comfort during the night may become harder to maintain. Each change appears small until the pattern is viewed as a whole.
The most important thing to understand is that the brain may not be creating these disruptions randomly. Many of these responses may be occurring for a reason. The body often reacts when something interferes with proper nighttime restoration. It attempts to adapt, it attempts to compensate, and sometimes it attempts to protect itself. Which leads to an even more intriguing question. When night mismatch occurs, how exactly does the body respond? This is where another piece of the puzzle begins to make sense. When the brain senses that normal nighttime restoration is not progressing smoothly, the body may respond, not with panic, not with dramatic symptoms, but with subtle actions designed to improve the situation. We can think of this response as the body flip signal, a protective reaction that may occur without conscious awareness. And once you understand it, many common nighttime experiences suddenly look very different. The body flip signal is not a medical diagnosis. It is simply a way of describing a pattern many people recognize. The body creates a small interruption, a brief awakening, a feeling of discomfort, a sudden urge to move, or a shift in alertness that seems to appear from nowhere. These responses may feel inconvenient, but they may not be random. Imagine sleeping in a position that no longer feels optimal for your body's needs. You may not consciously notice a problem, yet the body continuously monitors countless signals throughout the night. When something seems out of balance, it may encourage a change. That change could be as simple as rolling over, adjusting your posture, or briefly waking up before returning to sleep. The goal may be correction rather than disruption. This perspective helps explain why some people constantly change positions during the night. They are not necessarily choosing to move. Their body may be responding automatically. The same may be true for unexplained awakenings, or moments of unusual alertness, or feelings that sleep suddenly became lighter. Each response may represent an attempt to regain stability, an attempt to restore conditions that support deeper recovery. What appears to be a sleep problem may actually be a protective signal. The body notices something is not fully aligned. It reacts. The reaction creates a disturbance. The disturbance creates awareness, and awareness creates an opportunity for adjustment. Most people focus on the disturbance itself. Few stop to consider what may have triggered it in the first place. This is why night mismatch and the body flip signal may work together. One creates instability within the nighttime recovery process, the other attempts to respond to that instability. Over time, this cycle can repeat again and again. The The person experiences awakenings, movement, alertness, and fragmented sleep. Yet the deeper pattern remains hidden beneath those experiences. And if this pattern continues night after night, its effects may reach far beyond sleep itself. The reason this discussion matters is because sleep is not simply a period of rest. It is one of the most important recovery processes the brain experiences every day. During healthy sleep, the brain performs critical maintenance activities. It organizes information, supports memory, regulates countless biological functions, and prepares itself for the demands of the following day. When that process becomes disrupted repeatedly, the effects begin to accumulate. At first, those effects may appear subtle. A person may wake up feeling less mentally sharp. Concentration may require more effort than before. Names and details may seem harder to recall. Simple decisions may feel slightly slower. Mental clarity may fluctuate throughout the day. Many people dismiss these experiences as normal aging, yet the quality of nighttime restoration may be playing a larger role than they realize. As night mismatch continues, deeper recovery may become more difficult to achieve consistently. The brain spends more time shifting between restoration and alertness. The body flip signal creates additional interruptions. Sleep becomes fragmented even when the total hours appear sufficient. The result is not always obvious exhaustion. Instead, it may appear a subtle cognitive strain. The person functions normally enough to continue daily life, but something beneath the surface gradually feels different. Over time, repeated disruptions may influence several areas of brain performance. Memory may become less reliable, mental processing speed may slow, attention may become more vulnerable to distraction. Learning new information may require greater effort. Problem solving may feel less efficient. The brain remains capable, yet it may not be operating with the same resilience it once had. This is where the long-term implications become increasingly important. Researchers have spent years studying the relationship between sleep quality and cognitive function. Again and again, sleep appears connected to cognitive function. It appears connected to mental clarity. It appears connected to healthy aging, and it appears connected to the brain's ability to maintain resilience over time. When restorative sleep repeatedly falls short, concerns naturally begin to grow, especially when those patterns persist for months or years. That is one reason nighttime changes deserve attention rather than dismissal.
Perhaps most concerning is that these patterns may occur alongside factors associated with increased vulnerability as people age. Not because every sleep disruption leads to a serious health event, and not because occasional awakenings automatically signal danger, but because the brain depends on consistent restoration to function at its best. When restoration repeatedly becomes incomplete, resilience may gradually decline. That possibility helps explain why certain nighttime patterns deserve closer examination. Fortunately, there is another side to this story that many people never hear about. The encouraging news is that the brain is remarkably adaptable. Many nighttime patterns are not necessarily fixed or permanent. The body constantly responds to changes in its environment and routines. That means improvement often begins with awareness. Once a person understands what their body may be communicating, different choices become possible, and those choices can help create conditions that support deeper restoration. This is where hope begins to replace uncertainty. The goal is not to force sleep. The goal is to make restorative sleep easier for the brain to achieve naturally. That starts by reducing factors that may contribute to night mismatch. The fewer conflicting signals the brain receives, the easier it becomes to settle into recovery. Consistency often plays an important role. The brain responds well to predictable rhythms, and predictable rhythms help support healthier sleep patterns over time. Awareness is another important piece of the process. Many people ignore nighttime warning signs because they seem insignificant. Instead of dismissing them immediately, it can be helpful to pay attention, not with fear, not with obsession,
but with curiosity. Patterns that repeat frequently often reveal valuable information, and information creates opportunities for positive change. Healthy daytime habits can also influence what happens at night. The brain does not suddenly begin functioning differently when sleep starts. What occurs during the day often carries into the night. Movement matters, stress management matters, mental stimulation matters, overall brain supportive habits matter. Each one contributes to the conditions that support effective recovery. The body flip signal becomes less necessary when the body feels more balanced. The brain no longer needs to compensate as often. Sleep becomes less fragmented, awakenings may become less frequent, comfort may improve, mental clarity may feel stronger the next day. The goal is not perfection. The goal is creating an environment where natural restoration can occur more consistently. Perhaps the most important shift is learning to view these nighttime experiences differently. Instead of seeing them only as annoyances, they can become sources of information, signals rather than mysteries, messages rather than meaningless disruptions. That perspective changes how many people approach their sleep and brain health, and it may help explain why some individuals notice surprisingly meaningful improvements over time. Because once they understand what their body has been trying to communicate, everything begins to look different. By this point, it is important to remember something reassuring. Experiencing these nighttime sensations does not automatically mean a stroke is coming. It does not mean that something is seriously wrong with you, and it certainly does not mean that every restless night is a sign of danger. Many of these experiences are surprisingly common among older adults. The goal is not fear. The goal is understanding what your body may be trying to communicate. Too often, people swing between two extremes. They either ignore every symptom completely, or they assume the worst possible outcome. Neither approach is particularly helpful. The body is more nuanced than that. It often communicates through patterns rather than emergencies, through signals rather than alarms, and through repeated messages rather than isolated events. When viewed through that lens, many nighttime experiences begin to look different. A sudden awakening may not be random. A need to change positions may not be meaningless. Morning brain fog may not always be something to dismiss. Unusual alertness during the night may deserve attention, not because these experiences predict a specific outcome, but because they may reveal how effectively nighttime restoration is occurring. That perspective creates a more balanced way of looking at sleep. Imagine recognizing these signals earlier rather than later. Imagine becoming more aware of the patterns your body produces. Instead of feeling confused, you begin to understand what you are observing. Instead of feeling powerless, you become more informed. That awareness can support better conversations about health and sleep. It can encourage healthier routines, and it can help you make decisions with greater confidence moving forward. Small insights often lead to meaningful improvements over time. The brain depends on consistent restoration throughout life. The better that restoration process functions, the better the brain can support memory. Mental clarity becomes easier to maintain. Daily focus may feel stronger. Energy may become more stable. Sleep may feel more refreshing, and overall confidence in your cognitive health may improve. These possibilities begin with paying attention rather than looking away. Perhaps the most fascinating lesson is that the body is often communicating long before people learn to listen. Many signals appear harmless on the surface. Many become so familiar that they fade into the background. Yet familiarity does not always mean insignificance. Some patterns deserve a second look. Some nighttime behaviors may be carrying information that most people never recognize. And if that is true, what other overlooked changes during the night could reveal even more about what the brain has been trying to say all along?